step into your backyard with your morning coffee. The air is still. Maybe you're watering a few flowers, checking the garden, or simply enjoying the quiet. Then, out of nowhere, a tiny hummingbird appears. Not at the flowers, not at the feeder. It flies straight toward you. For 2 or 3 seconds, it hovers inches from your face. Its wings are almost invisible, its eyes locked on yours. Then, just as suddenly, it's gone. If this has happened once, you might call it coincidence. If it keeps happening, you start wondering if it's something more. Most people assume a hummingbird is only interested in nectar. They think every visit is about flowers or sugar water. But what if that isn't the whole story? What if that tiny bird isn't simply passing by? What if it's checking on something or someone? Scientists have spent years uncovering just how remarkable hummingbirds really are. Behind that blur of shimmering feathers is an animal with astonishing memory, incredible navigation skills, and behaviors that continue to surprise researchers. Some discoveries suggest these birds remember far more about their surroundings than anyone once believed. And if you've earned a hummingbird's trust, its behavior toward you may not be as random as it looks. Today, we're uncovering 7 surprising reasons hummingbird may keep returning to your yard, and why those brief moments when it hovers in front of you might reveal a story that's far more fascinating than most people realize. Stay until the end, because the final reason has left countless bird lovers seeing these tiny visitors in a completely different way. It's easy to underestimate a hummingbird. After all, it weighs less than a few pennies and can fit comfortably in the palm of your hand. But size can be incredibly misleading. Despite being one of the smallest birds on Earth, hummingbirds have one of the largest brain-to-body ratios in the avian world. A remarkable portion of their tiny body is devoted to the brain, especially the regions involved in learning and spatial memory, and they put that brain to work every single day. Imagine flying through a landscape filled with hundreds of flowers. Some were emptied minutes ago. Others won't produce fresh nectar for another half hour. A few are ready right now. Instead of checking each flower at random, hummingbirds build detailed mental maps of their environment. They remember where food was found, how rewarding each location was, and often, how long it takes before that nectar is worth visiting. Again, researchers have discovered that hummingbirds can remember feeding locations with astonishing accuracy and return at surprisingly precise times, conserving precious energy. For a bird whose survival depends on constant feeding, memory isn't just useful, it's essential. Now think about your backyard. The feeder hanging beside the porch. The flowering vine near the fence. The favorite perch overlooking the garden. To you, they're just familiar objects. To a hummingbird, they're part of an incredibly detailed map stored inside a brain no bigger than a pea. And somewhere on that map, there may be a place reserved for the person who quietly appears every morning with fresh nectar. Maybe that's why the same tiny visitor seems to know exactly where and when to find you. Because long before you notice the hummingbird, it may have already remembered you. Now here's where the story becomes even more intriguing. Have you ever noticed a hummingbird appearing at almost the exact same time each day? Maybe every morning while you're watering your flowers, maybe just before you leave for work, or perhaps every evening when the sun begins to set. At first it feels like a coincidence, but after it happens again and again, you begin to wonder if the bird somehow knows your schedule. As surprising as it sounds, research suggests hummingbirds possess an impressive sense of timing. Scientists have found that these birds don't simply remember where food is. They also remember when it's likely to be available. Instead of wasting precious energy checking empty flowers all day, they often return around the time nectar is expected to replenish. That strategy keeps them alive. Now imagine you've been filling your feeder at roughly the same time every morning for weeks. From the hummingbird's perspective, you've become part of the environment. Your footsteps, the sound of the back door opening, the movement of your hand reaching toward the feeder. Over time, those events can become reliable clues that fresh food may soon be available. Bird enthusiasts frequently describe hummingbirds arriving just before they refill their feeders, almost as if they're anticipating the routine. While every bird is different, these observations fit remarkably well with what scientists know about hummingbird memory and timing. So if one suddenly appears while you're carrying a pitcher of sugar water, it may not be guessing, it may simply be following a schedule. It has quietly learned from watching you. The next time you're outside, pay attention. Who noticed whom first? You or the hummingbird? Now comes the question almost every hummingbird lover asks. Does it actually know who I am? It sounds almost impossible. After all, we're talking about a bird no larger than your thumb. Yet birds continue surprising scientists with what they're capable of remembering. Studies on several bird species have shown that many can distinguish between individual people using visual cues, such as facial features, body shape, posture, and the way someone moves. Researchers have even documented birds remembering certain humans for years after a single negative encounter. Hummingbirds haven't been studied as extensively on facial recognition as crows or pigeons, but they possess exceptional eyesight and remarkable memory. Together, those abilities may help them recognize familiar people who regularly appear in their territory. Think about your own yard. Perhaps one person refills the feeder every day. Another rarely comes outside. After weeks, or even months, the hummingbird has watched these routines over and over again. It learns who moves calmly, who brings fresh nectar, who stays predictable, and who doesn't. That may explain why some hummingbirds seem perfectly comfortable hovering near one family member while remaining cautious around everyone else. Not because they're tame, but because trust in the wild is earned. So when a hummingbird pauses in front of your face for a few brief seconds, it may not be inspecting your clothes or wondering if you're a flower. It could simply be gathering one last piece of information. Is this the same familiar person I've seen here before? For a creature that survives by making thousands of tiny decisions every day, recognizing what feels safe could make all the difference. Every spring, something extraordinary happens above our heads. While most of us are going about our daily lives, millions of hummingbirds are making one of the most demanding migrations in the animal kingdom. Some species travel well over 1,000 miles. Others fly even farther, crossing forests, deserts, mountains, and in the case of the ruby-throated hummingbird, hundreds of miles across the Gulf of Mexico without a single place to rest. For a bird that weighs only a few grams, it's an astonishing feat. But here's the part that surprises many people. Researchers have found that hummingbirds often return to the same feeding areas year after year. They don't simply wander until they find flowers again. Many show remarkable loyalty to locations that proved reliable in previous seasons. Think about that for a moment. After months away, after crossing an entire continent, the tiny hummingbird that once visited your garden may remember exactly where dependable nectar was waiting. The flowering vine beside your fence, the feeder hanging from your porch, the favorite perch overlooking your yard. To us, it's just another backyard. To the hummingbird, it's a place that once meant survival. Perhaps that's why, on the first warm days of spring, it seems as though a familiar visitor has somehow found its way home. Maybe your yard wasn't just another stop along the journey. Maybe it became part of the bird's map of the world. If you've ever watched hummingbirds around a feeder, you've probably witnessed something unexpected. One tiny bird suddenly explodes into action, chasing another hummingbird across the yard at incredible speed. A second later, they're diving, weaving, and darting through the air like miniature fighter jets. For birds so small, they're surprisingly fearless. Why? Because to a hummingbird, a dependable food source is worth protecting. Unlike many backyard birds that happily feed together, hummingbirds are often highly territorial. A productive feeder, or a patch of nectar-rich flowers, can become the center of a bird's daily survival. Scientists have observed dominant hummingbirds defending these feeding areas with astonishing determination, repeatedly driving away rivals that get too close. From our perspective, it's just a backyard feeder. From the hummingbird's perspective, it's valuable real estate. Every successful chase means more nectar, more energy, a better chance of surviving another day. And over time, your yard becomes more than a place to visit. It becomes part of the bird's territory. That's why you may hear sharp chirps from a nearby branch before another hummingbird is chased away. The bird isn't simply making noise, it's announcing ownership, as if it's saying, "I've claimed this place, find your own." The remarkable part is this. Without realizing it, you may have become the caretaker of a tiny territory that a wild bird considers worth defending. So, after everything we've learned, the remarkable memory, the incredible migration, the routines it remembers, the territory it fiercely protects, we're left with one final question. Why does it stop in front of you? No one can say, with absolute certainty, what a hummingbird is thinking. Science can't read the mind of a bird, but researchers do know something important. Hummingbirds gather information with extraordinary precision. They constantly evaluate their surroundings, remember safe places, and recognize patterns that help them survive. So when one suddenly hovers just inches from your face, it may not be an accident at all. Perhaps it's taking a closer look at the familiar person it has seen countless times. Perhaps it's confirming that the yard is still safe, or perhaps it's simply satisfying its endless curiosity before racing off again. Whatever the reason, for those few brief seconds, one of nature's smallest wonders chooses to pause, not at a flower, not at a feeder, but right in front of you. And maybe that's why so many people never forget the moment. Years later, they can still describe exactly where they were standing, what the sunlight looked like, how tiny those wings seemed, and how, for just an instant, time felt as though it had stopped. Perhaps that's the real gift of a hummingbird. Not that it recognizes us with certainty, but that it reminds us to notice the extraordinary moments hidden inside ordinary days. So the next time a hummingbird appears in your yard, don't rush the moment. Watch carefully, stay still, because you may be witnessing a tiny traveler carrying memories from hundreds or even thousands of miles away, choosing, for reasons only it truly knows, to spend a few unforgettable seconds with you. If you've ever had a hummingbird hover right in front of your face, I'd love to hear your story. How close did it get? Did it return again the next day, or even the next year? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might be the next mystery we explore together. Until next time, keep looking a little closer at the wildlife around you. You never know what's quietly watching back.